Well, I have not so far found a sheet of paper that did conclusively link my father to a man called Greg Byworth. But I think I've said in a recent video, or on my timeline anyway, it really wouldn't make much difference. And I think the reason I'm not finding it in my evidence pile is that I realised when I saw it, it wouldn't make much difference. Greg Byworth was part of a porn ring in the late 80s. He may well have carried on. The next I know of him, oddly enough, he was here in Wales and being done for a dodgy dogs home. And I do hesitate to call that trivia, but it wouldn't put him way up there with the major league criminals. That one thing that I can pin on him now. I think the reason that I did not put that sheet of paper in the evidence pile and put it back in a drawer, and I still can't find it, was precisely that. It didn't prove anything. It proved that my father knew a man called Greg Byworth. Well, who the hell is Greg Byworth? To anyone in 2016. How many people have ever heard of him? Do I have a copy of his conviction for his part in a porn ring? Do I hell? Can I Google it? No. Was I even ever told by the police, who had put me and my family at so much risk by interviewing me, was I told what had happened to him? No. I did read about a year later what had happened to the couple in a little place called Ferndown. And it wasn't very much. It was a £2,000 fine and all their materials confiscated. And somebody told me, I think Ken must have still been alive at the time that they were done. His case must have been pending. Because I can't think who else would have told me. Somebody told me that they had immediately set up in business again. They had restocked and that was that. So, turning in the porn ring was a terrible mistake, quite honestly. It achieved less than nothing. It got people killed. And still, the police did not have the common decency to tell me if anything had been achieved by it, or what had happened to Greg Byworth. Well, unfortunately, here I go without proof. Google Greg Byworth in Anislas, a little place near Borth in Wales. As I say, you'll find this lower level conviction. That's all. But more and more, I realised that that man was still in Southampton from 1988 onwards, 1988, 1989, all those years. It would appear that he was keeping track of me. And I don't know exactly how much of a psychopath he was. I knew he'd done time in jail, or at least Ken Browning told me that he had done time in jail, and I never knew what for. But when I think that in 2002, it would appear he was still gunning for me, I have to think that it was that man who gave KM Sumra the green light to go after me. He obviously bore a hell of a grudge. But then again, as I say, I don't know what the outcome of the court case was for him. I don't know if he went back to jail. I don't know what the hell. I assume that if he was convicted for his part in that porn ring, as a man who already had a criminal record, a jail record, he probably went back to Turkey. And that does set me thinking. He knew my father. Greg Byworth lived in a road called Claudine Close. I think, to be precise, it was 17 Claudine Close in Swaithling, Southampton. And he had a warehouse. He and Ken and my ex-husband Bob had a warehouse in Empress Road, Southampton, which actually is half a mile from where Fiona died. I got that wrong in a private message yesterday, and then I looked again at the map and thought, no, Empress Road. It was a warehouse. Am I rambling? It was a warehouse in which they carried out their business, which, as I have said, it was covered. The pawn ring was covered over by this magazine for a Lonely Hearts Club, and no, I last as well cannot remember the name of it. Not the Lonely Hearts Club. I can say that Ocean Trading, they let the warehouse out from Ocean Trading. Ocean Trading has moved. It's not where it used to be. It was in Empress Road. What does interest me about that, by the way, is that on Ken's death certificate, his profession is given as printer. Yes, he was a printer for that magazine. And on Robin Stoddart's death certificate, Robin Stoddart being someone I did not know of at that time. I didn't know of him until 5 or 6 years later. Robin Stoddart, they were working for a warehouse. Robin Stoddart had his profession given as warehouseman. Now that has come up on a number of other death certificates in my possession. People connected to my father in London. People who died suddenly. And people who were connected to my half-sister Karen. And her mother. And her stepfather. And one thing I haven't done in any of these videos is say a damned word about Karen Ann's stepfather. I had a hell of a lot to say about him in my book, Deadly Daddy. A hell of a lot. Literally hundreds of references to that name, perhaps a bit OTT. I have gone off at a tangent, which I'm prone to do. Enid, my father's wife, married twice. She married my father in 1942, divorced him in 1952. By that time, she was living with a man called Thomas William Montgomery, and she had taken his name in 1949. She didn't marry him until 1972, and this is where it gets interesting for me. I think it could have made a very good Agatha Christie novel, because you would never think, if you were looking for a connection between these dead people, you would never think what it was. The two witnesses to my father's wedding, to Thomas William Montgomery, and of course I went off at the tangent because I was thinking about warehousemen. The two witnesses to his wedding, to my father's wedding to Enid, died in the same year as the two witnesses to Enid's second wedding. Well, could be coincidence, except that two of them were father and son, and one of them was called Thomas William Montgomery, same name as the groom, and one of them was called James Thomas Montgomery, same one of the wedding witnesses. So that gets complicated for a start, because he doesn't appear to have been Enid's husband's son. He was the son of another Thomas William Montgomery, yet he was a witness at Enid's wedding. I've gone on 9.5 minutes, and I started off on one topic, and I've gone on to something totally different. It was that warehouseman thing that a couple of the dead, at least two of the dead, were warehousemen. 5 people died in the same year. All 4 wedding witnesses to both of Enid's weddings, and a man with exactly the same name as her new husband, who was a father to one of her wedding witnesses. I'm on 10 minutes, blasted. And I started off with the porn ring, but I think I'm still on it, actually. I'm sure I am on a criminal ring, which went on for many a decade, and began in Sin City, London. I'm by no means convinced that Enid was a total innocent in all of this. Not at all. I did start off with Greg Byworth again, who, by the way, was born in the correct London area to be a part of all of this, and to have known Ken Browning many, many, many years before Ken Browning ever spoke of him or introduced me to him. I have said that my sister Karen Ann was killed for a number of different reasons, but I do have to take into account the possibility of political warfare, political vendettas, gang warfare, vendetta killings, which would actually possibly let my father off the hook. All I actually know for a fact is that she was 19 in 1 week. My father killed people around their birthdays, near their birthdays, and the brake cable on the bike she was riding on was partially missing. This video is all over the place, isn't it? And I've suddenly touched on a topic that I have touched on very, very much in my book, and not much in videos, if at all. Let's see how this plays back, actually.